Great weekend. What's yours?
What'd you do this weekend?
What was that?
Anything cool?
Yeah, we had our I don't know if you want to jump right in or not,
Yeah,
but
man. It's
uh,
just always you and
we
me.
really deal analysis. That's like the most fun class. That's a
I
class I would like pay
I
to go to.
I know. I know.
Right? But anyway, so we had our second set of meetings, and they went even better than the first set of meetings.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great. So like, and so the with Smith, Smith has always been kind of like a little problematic and lower rate and you know people and high turnover.
Hmm.
But now, for like the first time, they were like, "Oh well, no, the place is clean. We're all getting along. We like it here." Like we had everybody say we had like seven people on the Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
So and everybody saying they like it here and they want to help out and everything. So and how this is a different pad split than any pad split they've ever been to and stuff like that. Like I couldn't get them to stop talking. I had to like wait while all like the chatter died down about how much they like the place.
Nice.
So yeah.
So we had two
Um,
people move out of Smith, right? Is that what happened? It was a transfer?
um,
Because
let
I've got two
me.
two vacancies in here, one since the 11th and one since the 31st.
Okay, I think I think those are from a little while ago.
Okay.
One, if they're the two that I'm thinking of, one was I think we talked about this last time. One was someone who worked across the city, and we
Hmm.
didn't have any patzels over there. And two, one guy was a guy that just he never showed up, he never talked, he never had a valid phone number, and he
Oh,
just moved. He got terminated.
got it.
He like through lack of pay. So I mean, it's like we never even communicated with him. He just was terminated because he never just stopped paying. So he's gone, and then the person who is working elsewhere is gone.
Got it.
But I think those are the only two people we lost.
Yeah, we need to get a booking this week. It
Yeah.
makes me mad when I keep looking at it. I'm like, because my target number for portfolios is 85% occupancy as a baseline number. And that's
Uh,
aggressive, but it's something that I want to try to
yeah,
just
that's great.
target. And I'm like, because I get you to 85% occupancy. I got a leg to stand on, which is
Hey,
good
that's
though.
awesome. Thank you very much.
I
Um,
came across a report that I want to share with you.
hmm?
Um, and this is a really cool one because it's you don't necessarily see it so much, but you will get to see it across. Hold on. Oh boy. Um, it- Essentially, it is what just happened here. Um, you get. I'm sorry. You get to see who is and is not rejecting. So there's a
Hmm.
report that I came across, which is essentially your bookings request comes in, and then you get to see
Mhm.
your rejection percentage across that portfolio. Um, hey, Sean, how are you,
Hey there. How
Mr.
are you?
Gene Gadsden? Me, Chris
Yes, yes.
Clayton. I think you guys have met before.
We
Yeah, we
definitely
very
have,
briefly. Yes.
Yeah,
and
like it.
supposed to connect.
No worries. This is
Yeah,
good.
no, no, looking forward to that. We can do that whenever it's good for you, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So peep this. I like this report a lot because it kind of gives us two sides of the marketplace, right? Chris, you mind me sharing this data? Are you okay with that?
No, go ahead. No, 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 it's fine.
Okay. So this is the part that I really like. Last 90 days rejections to bookings per property. So for 32nd Street, we've had 16 booking requests come down, and then 10 of those were rejections. So I know that typically from your side, on the operator side, the actual true operator, which is Kat in this case, she's the one who's doing bookings, approvals, and rejections. So there are some instances where I have a host who's the owner, and then the operator is here, and there's a bit of a disconnect between what is the criteria that you're using for booking rejections. And so I found this report. I really like it a lot because it just lends itself to give you a different perspective of, all right, we are getting booking requests and we are rejecting them. And I am a mad proponent of reject with cause, reject with reason, have an SOP for rejections. If we see a surge of booking requests come in and then rejection reasons, two things that I would really like to see out of here is A, we're going to see confirmation on what is the SOP that we're utilizing for rejection so that we're consistent across it. And then B, if we're seeing a surge of these rejections, I want to know from our side so that I can continue to give feedback to our member aggregation team around like, hey, you keep putting, bottom feeders across my desk, and my guys are going to continue to just keep beating that up. So I need you to tweak something on your front end side. So the hope is 50% or less. Target number is around 40% rejections, if at the most. This is, I'd much rather have a portfolio of 8 bookings came in and 1 rejection, right? It's like we just know that we're just moving along the right type of revenue and potential revenue where we're seeing yes to that. So this was specifically one of the fun things about as I was digging through kind of our data structure. I'm like, all right, this is something hosts across the board would find valuable. Thoughts, concerns, questions?
Do most hosts not have that information already? I know I don't do my.
Yeah, most hosts are disconnected from the day-to-day operation of it. So when I show this, this is actually a surprise to a lot of hosts.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have guessed those numbers. So you're saying most hosts don't manage also?
No. Like the ones that have portfolios, the ones that I come across, unless you're self-managing 1 or 2, portfolio type things,
gotcha, okay.
You're not seeing this data, nor do you. And the reason this came up is because I'm starting to work with a lot more hedge funds, and the hedge funds, they want to see standard reporting month over month. And I like their standard reporting. And that's something that I'm trying to create a standard across everybody, is that on the monthly basis, you're going to get this same exact data reported back out. It's not on our dashboard. It's not how our data is aggregated, but the way they have to report up into their hedge fund, it just makes a lot of sense for portfolio owners. I'm like, I'm going to steal the hell out of that. And then we're just going to put it into our existing playbook for as hosts look at their portfolio on a monthly and a weekly basis. Data like this is super helpful because then you can kind of tweak it with your operator to say, hey, we talk about it on a quarterly, we talk about it on a monthly. This is the process we're going to implement for booking approvals and rejections. Now the operator has to justify kind of back around. You rejected 62%, and then the stupid stuff I find is, well, I didn't see it. It came through on the weekend. I only had 24 hours. I didn't want to take the risk, so they rejected it. That's an asinine response to that. Yeah. And while like I do understand where that would cause like agita, where somebody's like, hey, I just didn't know. I didn't get to dig in. So I'd rather not take the chance and reject. That's just lost revenue in that standpoint, right? That's an operational problem on our side that we can work to fix.
Yeah.
Jean, you ever see yours?
No, I'm on here actually looking for it now to see where it is.
Yeah, you're not going to see it aggravated. That's the thing, right? So it's like from your side, you don't have any bookings in the last 90 days. Well, that doesn't make sense. You should.
We definitely have bookings in the last 90 days.
Yeah, you know why? It might be under Haven.
Haven.
Yeah. I would have thought it would be under here, but maybe not. Let me see if I can pull it up any other way. Boom, 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 boom. Let me see what I'm seeing. Let me dig through here and see if I could find it. Not sure. The only reason why that may pop up is if I go into your specific listings, I may be able to find if you have, say yes, approvals put on or not. Hold on. Let me go see what you got here. Let me mimic you in.
You may be under HRI,
Yeah, I'm just checking. Hold on for a second.
because I think that's the account name.
It should come up as your name because I pulled it up. And I am in your profile. Let me see something real quick. Anyway, that was, as we talk about June in terms of what the focus is across all of June, this is a big one. Is like, hey, let's dig in and look under the hood around our booking approval process so that we're consistent around when bookings come in. Two parts of this like June focus is we're now actually shedding a big spotlight on this specific operator process. So it is what's it look like from a data inbound. So, Chris, Gene, these are the things where like, hey, I only get this set of data. And this is where the surfaced host request of 24 hours may not be enough. If I send them a request for either an inbound questionnaire and they don't respond back, I will reject them. So is there a button where I can extend out that period? That was one of the things that came out of this conversation. Things like that, I think, just make sense for us in terms of being able to give that pushback to our property, our development team, and say, this is the request that's coming back down through our guys. Can we clean that up? Or is there a different way that we can actually clean that up on our side in terms of product side differences? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if I ask Kat if she ever misses them,
Mhm.
she would say no. They're very good about always getting them,
Yeah.
and I'm almost concerned that if you extend it out, that will definitely be used, and it will always take longer to get to people.
Yeah.
That's just a random thought about that.
I don't disagree. I just think that there's unique scenarios where hosts don't have that option. So if it's a Saturday or at 6 p.m. or whatever the case may be, and it comes back up and the clock starts rolling, and whoever's on it didn't pick it up, that's where we're going to run into a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same thing for us, is that I think we have it on, some sort of automatic deal.
Yep. 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 And because what happens is if you don't look at it, 24 hours
Yeah,
later,
if you don't,
boom, they're going
it's
to come
gone.
into the house and you're going to be like,
Yeah.
whoa, and getting them
Yeah.
out or like emergency transfer because I missed that window. That's a big pain in the behind. That causes a lot of agita for our internal folks is, oh, that's a bad member experience. And I'm like, okay, but that's a bad host experience at the same time. So let's find a common path in between.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I think the only reason that or the main one of the main reasons we reject people is if we call them and they don't get back to us in time,
Mhm,
and we
mhm,
have to reject them before that window is over. So
mhm.
that would be an argument for the button that would
Yeah,
extend it out.
exactly, exactly. It's just because what ends up happening is like it's just so binary right now. It's either I'm going to force let them in or I'm force rejecting them. But
Yeah.
again, in most situations, we have this like unique way of saying, why can't we be flexible as business needs come up? That's my push to these guys. Is like give hosts more flexibility that they can do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Makes sense.
okay. Anything on your mind, Mr. Gadsden?
Um, sure, always a lot.
Hmm?
I apologize for kind of being absent for a while there. We had a big project that is wrapping up, and so, well, actually getting started wrapping up, meaning we're about to move into due diligence. So
Ooh,
long
fun.
story short, well, we'll see. We'll see. It's a big one, a lot of units, and so we're just trying to see what we can see there.
Yeah.
So there were a few things that I wanted to get some clarity on.
Hmm.
These are pretty specific, so I don't want to, sort of monopolize the call
No,
Ah,
if
go ahead, please.
okay. So one of the items is with our property manager, the manager of these properties.
uh-huh.
So this is very specific. So on the actual like permissions,
Yeah.
what is sort of the difference between sort of management, property admin, like super admin,
Hmm.
finance, some of those things seem to get confusing. And I want them to have pretty much as much access as they need to handle problems when I'm not around. Um, but I also want to understand what the controls are.
The big primary differential between the permission settings is the access to the financial information. So super admin can do anything from a that you can do. That's no big difference. Like that's the difference between you and I think I'm looking at a property at Rosedale. So
Mhm.
you have the same super admin rights as Sophia Graves. But
So this
then
is interesting. Shirley has management, is where I think I
Yeah,
saw.
Shirley and Lauren have management. So management allows you to do anything physical on the property, but outside of the business part of it, they would not have access to, meaning financial reporting and changing any of the settings around the financing.
So what about the property admin? What's the difference between super admin and property admin?
Let me get the. I'm gonna send you a doc because I'll request it because I don't want to talk out of line about
No, that makes sense.
specific skills, and then it's a one-time fix for us is we'll take a look at it moving forward. Any property that we put on, this is the setting for, the boots on the ground person. This is the setting for the administrator of that boots on the ground person, and then you
Yeah,
figure out
so
like the three different levels.
here's my, and again, this is really specific, but our team for these is sort of three pieces. We have a whole maintenance team, we have a property management team, and then we have an accounting team. So those three people, I would think, you know, can all use access, but right now I have them just going through the person that has the super admin access,
Mm-hmm.
and then she just figures out whether they need, more or less data, and it's very rare, maybe it's monthly reporting, but it would be very helpful to have them have their own logins, and I know that the accountant can really, see view and download the financials, but can't necessarily change prices to the units. The super admin can do, anything, but the other thing that I don't like is I don't really have a record of what has been done by the
Mm-hmm.
super admin.
Yeah.
It just, it occurs. So like if it happens in something like a QuickBooks or some of our other software, there's a detailed report that says, here's what she changed, right? She did this, she did that, and that's fine. It's instructive and helpful for other admins, right? So when somebody else comes in the job, they know kind of what the other people have been doing and kind of what the day-to-day looks like. There's not a lot of turnover on our team, but it's very helpful to have that sort of list of things that have been done. And it's also a good sort of check and balance when I say, when someone says, hey, I did that last week, I don't know what happened, it's good to be able to go back and see that nothing was done last week, and that's why,
Right. Right.
we have some terrible tenant in here.
Understood. Understood. I'll
And
send you a clarifying email with specific roles with suggestions of
okay,
where you want to put them.
okay. And this role piece is where some of our major issues come in. Some of it is I think I've given someone access to something. They say that they don't see it. I don't know that they don't see, messages that come in. Like to me, every admin and every PM, sort of person should be able to see text messages from, tenants that can't get in their room or,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. That should just be instant and go to everybody. I know I see it, but, I'm assuming everybody sees it and then they'll tell me, hey, I can't see that, right? It only came to you. That's problematic.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll
The other
clarify
thing
that one.
is, I would also love to be able to change those permissions. And maybe there is a like a bulk action. So, across, all the properties for a certain new person, just dump it in there because the way I had to do it before was one by one.
I've already put that as a product request is cloning an existing property for new onboarding listings so that it's just so much
Yeah.
easier to do.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. I've put that in there already. So I will keep an eye out for what that looks like.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're just trying to make it easier across the board, and it's not
And
necessary.
then when you have the lit, so there's a kind of an operator and a non-operator status for people. What does that mean?
You're talking about in terms of roles?
Well, there's a column so let's see, where am I? I'm inside the sort of place where you manage people,
Mm-hmm.
and it says sort of the operator is a person that operates it on a daily basis. This can be the owner, property manager,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And then there's a non-operator. So I'm thinking maybe
Oh,
non-operator
like a
is
JV partner.
accountant.
No, it'd be like
Oh,
a JV silent PML partner that wants access to
got it.
C data, but they don't actually have any operational
Got it. Got it. So,
controls.
so if I turn someone off as an operator, but I've given them all these admin controls, I just don't understand how that works. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
this
yeah.
in the same sheet, it says, hey, what are their permissions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I give someone, permission to take a look at whatever it is, admin level or super admin permissions, but then I say that they are not an operator, how does that change what they have access to?
Yeah, just wait for the sheet. I'll get the one
Okay.
pager about like
Okay.
what they have true access to.
Okay. All right. I'll definitely do that.
Yep.
Um, let's see here.
Oh, while I have you,
Sure.
5449 party. We have that one inactive room.
Hmm.
What
Let
was
me
that the one
get
that
to
we have
it.
a family member living in that one?
No, we had a whole building of corporate tenants,
Yeah.
and once we removed those corporate tenants, we had maybe three or four that needed to be placed. So they were just put in these separate
Got it.
rooms.
Got it.
And in fact, I think they all roll out at the end of, some of them are at the end of June.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I think everyone is out by July 1.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that's kind of good. Is there a function, and maybe this is a feature request, one of the things that we usually do with our tenants is we just have like an exit interview, right? Like, hey, what's causing you to leave?
Mm-hmm.
Just so we understand. And then generally it would be good to kind of give a periodic review. And I know you had talked about potentially having house meetings, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously as we scale up, it's easier for us to kind of automate those things so that we can get comments back from these sort of tenants and members and just see what they're liking, what they don't like, what we can improve. Because some of these things are super easy and some of them are not.
Yeah.
I would
Um,
say, yeah.
I believe that on the move out process, it gives them a hey, here's your instructions for when they schedule a move out. I know on the move in, we have an automatic email that can go back for cadence. I know that the platform actually sends out a move out survey to the member. I don't know if there is a space in there for a host to say, I'm looking for a move out survey so that I can, do Q&A against, quality check against, whatever service for feedback. I will ask
Yeah.
that question for you because I think that's essentially what you're asking for is like, hey, move out triggers. Here's an auto survey. Give us feedback on what we could or did well or could do improvement on.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. There's several reasons, but the biggest two are if we have a member that's, some other member is the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they just like five different people don't get along with this one member,
Yeah.
and we've had that before where the member's just, super messy or has other issues or, and they may not have complained during their stay, they just immediately leave.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
if there's some other reason, like we had some lady that
Yeah.
was,
By
she
the way, I
didn't,
want to not to interrupt you. I want to say something about that whenever we're done. Like that's a good
okay.
topic. Anyway, keep
Yeah,
going.
but I would say that, and then the other thing was, some lady really didn't like her mattress sort of comfort level. These are things that are easy to fix and understand if I know that that's what the issue is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I don't know that that's the issue, it's very hard. And this one, we reached out to a couple of these folks, especially people like we will have people that may or may not, um, they may stay for, a week and then they're gone. Now, for me, I just want to know, was that your original plan, right? Were you just coming in for a week
Mm-hmm.
or did something occur?
Yep. Yep. So I addressed that in a post move in follow up call. And again, to your point, like how do we make this scalable? Um, I do two things. Is mostly I check on the inbound when I approve somebody that their contact information is the same. And then a follow up is 48 hours after they actually move in, and 24 to 48 hours. There's a follow up call. Is the room up to the expectations you had when you moved in? And then from at that point, I'm trying to decipher back out, what happened, what's in the room that I'm not meeting expectations. And that gives me a moment to correct it. And it kind of resets that expectation with the member that says, oh, they're responsive to what's going on. And then I have one or two things that I'm trying to address. It allows me to kind of knock off some low hanging fruit. And then they're just kind of more bought into staying. I haven't had a whole bunch of move outs. So I don't have, um, I haven't beaten up the move out process from an automation standpoint, but I hear where you're going with that one.
Yeah, and so I had an issue with my team where they weren't updating, they didn't have a robust enough sort of move-in email,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, we have a gate code, we have a front door code, and we have a room code,
Oh,
and we have like a Wi-Fi code, right?
yep,
I
yep.
was like, every email, the one communication with the member should include all those things the first time and then just make sure they're somewhere in the portal where they can find them if they, misplaced the email or the text or whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had maybe 5 instances of one of those things being missing, and the person would get there and they can't get on the internet or they can't get in one of the, sort of doors, sort of thing, and it was just a bad move-in process, which is something I can solve for that if I know what it is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I can see the messages from someone saying, "Hey, I can't find this or I can't find that." What I can't solve for is the back end when they move out because of some issue in process.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And they're not going to
but
tell
I
you.
like your, yeah,
Yeah.
I like your kind of house meeting deal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that scales, but maybe it's a 10-minute Zoom call instead of an in-house meeting with donuts, but something that I can use to get feedback. The
Yep.
survey was to me, the natural extension of that.
Yeah. So we were just talking about that before you got here. Chris took that on full bull ride. And his take on it was really interesting because he's Virginia based. His properties are in Jacksonville. Even his PM is
Mhm.
there. But Chris, I'll let you kind of speak to that a little bit. Is like how you're
Sure. That
navigating
was
the.
actually, yeah, that was actually what I was going to talk about today. So we had
Great.
Yeah, I think so. Zoom meetings, I'm in Virginia, so 15-minute Zoom meetings, it's tremendously improved operations, like completely turned them around. Like we were having very high churn. People were unhappy for nothing that we could do. Like the house was fine. It's just that anytime there's a problem, it's like 80 to 90% of the time. The people that live there are not like the three of us. We can reach out and resolve our problems. That's generally not what they do. They need help resolving their problems. This is all my opinion. So it's like if something goes wrong, they don't want to say anything to that person. They want to, they hold it in, and then it's either becomes a problem or they leave. One thing. So now, Quentin, I wanted to tell you this one thing. This is what I wanted to comment on before. Um, One thing that Quentin has said is like a problem, which I've actually kind of taken on as the problem, is if there's a good member and a bad member, and there's a conflict, the good member tends to leave and the bad member tends to stay, which is a double loss. So
Right.
I've actually, and I'm saying this in the meetings too. So basically, so I'm doing the meetings by Zoom. I'm like, hey, we've got a meeting. There's going to be pizza. We're going to sit down and talk and resolve. Totally worth it. And I said, hey, one of the things that happens in other pad splits, not my pad splits, but other pad splits, is there will be a bad member that comes in. Like I know all you guys are good members, but there will be a bad member that comes in. And what happens is the bad member annoys all the other good members by not cleaning, causing problems, et cetera, et cetera. And then what happens is the good members get annoyed and they leave. That's the opposite of what we want. So our mission is to make sure that everyone here is a good member and all the people coming in are also good members. That way we can have this professional environment where and then by now, everyone just loves that idea. And like one of our properties, which is actually our lowest rate property, it's in like the 140s to 170s or 80s range. Um, there was very high churn. There was a lot of problems. No one talked to each other. And we just had the second meeting, and they were all on the meeting. They said, this is, we're all getting along. The house is staying clean. Everyone's happy there. And there's 8 people in the house. So it's like that never would have happened before. So I can go on about this all day, but I'm now a huge fan of these meetings, and it takes literally 2 hours a month to do all of our houses, and it's everything has turned around. Everyone's talking now.
And how many of these do you have? Do you like?
We have 3 that are live right now, and they're all almost full.
Yeah.
So basically,
So, oh, go ahead.
no, it's fine. I could tell you as much detail as you want, and then if you want to talk and have questions, that's fine too.
No, no. I think that I kind of we have a bunch of other stuff in our portfolio that is catching on fire. And so, I kind of left it to our PM team who, they just need more direction. And typically, uh, I would say if we're paying this much for stuff, right? So whether it be PadSplit or our property managers, I don't expect to have to do anything, right?
Mhm.
I
We
hear
we
you
have
on that,
really
but and I'm a business person also. I've had a business or more businesses for 26 years, so I understand exactly what you're saying with that. And I also have Pat Split, and I also have property managers. But I'll tell you right now, and I think Quentin would probably agree with this, and you probably would too. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, and it doesn't,
100%.
there's not much of a time commitment either.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
compared to
saying I say all that to say I think this, sort of Frankenstein is my own monster, right? Like I've got to undo that and kind of take it back to basics. In 2 hours, a month is nothing to manage a couple of these, and I think maybe we have 3 or 4 of these, and they're all relatively small and more or less co-located around certain areas, so or at least certain property managers, and so I can have those calls set up and do that with almost no real effort.
If
Yeah.
if you're going to go down that path, and you are one of many, Sean, like think about this. Like I talked to Chris. We had a 6-week run and evolution about this was like, oh, good idea. Oh, different ways to implement it. Same thing goes for other hosts that have multiple properties and a PM. What I'm finding is it's the PMs that they're going down a path of this is just how we've always done it with very little inspiration and motivation to try something differently. In this specific instance, if you are game, I am open to running, either like a PM training where you can send your folks to a monthly call around, hey, this is best practices shared across how other people are implementing new and different things across your portfolio. In your instance, hey, this is the SOPs that we're looking around for. How do we screen people coming on the inbound? So we set that expectation. And then how do we follow up with a quick 15-minute, house call to kind of reinforce that same expectation? And that's kind of your scalable solution for as you continue to put more of these properties on. Your PM is now implementing the process that you want. And then it's easier for you to kind of hold them accountable for that. Let us help train your people.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy job. Like you could almost get like a virtual assistant to do it. Like, I mean, we don't do much. I could run through what I did in like 5 minutes that completely turned all 3 of our properties around if you want.
Definitely want to hear that.
Sure, yeah, I'll do it real quick. And this is, again, all credit goes to Quentin. Most credit. I came up with some
yeah,
stuff.
you had to do it, man. That's the big thing.
So here's what we do. So it's our meetings for our 3 houses. By the way, I've got a lot of other real estate too. PadSplit is actually the smallest of the 3/3 of the things that I do. So I mean, I got a lot of other stuff I do also. So
but
you're
100% real estate though.
No, well, I've got a couple of things no, I've got some stuff that's not real estate also, but most of it's real estate. But anyway, my point is really just, this is a small time commitment compared to the benefit that you get from it, in my opinion. So, okay, the first time we asked people what times would be good for them, generally Saturday evening was the best time for most people. So we have our meetings at 6:30, 7, and 7:30. And as we add properties, we'll figure that out. But so here's what I do. 5:55, I go on the Pizza Hut app and I order pizza. It's like $40 to $45 for that house. 6:25, I order pizza for the second house. 6:30, we have the meeting for the first house. 6:55, the next half hour, order pizza for the third house. 7 o'clock, we have the meeting for the second house, then the meeting for the third house. So in a meeting, I only have basically 3 messages. One is that we're an exclusive community where we only have people who want to work through their problems. And again, this is straight from Quentin. If you don't want to work through your problems, that's totally fine. There's 1,000 other PadSplits in Jacksonville that you can go to that would be happy to have you. But here, we only have people that are friendly, professional, like to clean their own space and chip in for the common spaces and want to resolve problems amicably. So that's my number 1 message. The first message. And number 2, it's the idea of bad members versus good members. We want to keep the good members, not the bad members. Just an offshoot of that first point. And then we do some cleaning supplies. It's kind of like an activity we just started where like we found that a couple of members were buying all the cleaning supplies. So basically, bottom line is we're getting just some basic cleaning supplies for each house each month, having it sent there. And so we have like a little thing where like, okay, so what kind of cleaning supplies do we need? So they have kind of an incentive to be there and it opens the floor up a little bit. And then finally, once we're talking, I'm like, okay, so what other kinds of issues are there with members or the house? And then I just kind of open the floor. And again, someone Quentin says, if Andrew is not taking out the trash, he might never take out the trash if nobody talks to him. But if we have a meeting and we're like, hey, Andrew's not taking out the trash. I'm like, Andrew, are you taking out the trash? He's like, no, not really. It's like, well, could you take out the trash? And he's like, yeah, I can do that. And it's usually like 9 out of 10 problems that normally would be held in and become big problems later are easily resolvable. Or, and this is something that came out, and I haven't told Quentin about this yet, for one of our houses, there was literally everyone was getting along except for one person. And that kind of came out, and I was like, hey, why don't everyone should message on the PadSplit app privately to the PM. That way, we've got a record of everyone saying that this person is not cleaning, they're being disruptive, and so on. And then, like the next day, everyone did that, and today we're getting that taken care of. Whereas otherwise, that person probably would have been there for who knows how long, causing problems and chasing everybody else out. Okay, that's the end.
I'll just
That's
throw it
good.
in there real quick. Like that simple statement of I will protect the community because this is a business. Like people get it. Like when I say it, like there's 7 people in the house. If one of you is a pain in the ass, I'm gonna protect the 6 because this is my business and that's good revenue. And you're jeopardizing and you're at risk. You made that decision. These are your behavioral choices. You're getting a notice of vacate. And I set that expectation in the very beginning when we do the initial screening is we are screening for people that want to participate in this type of community. And John, it's not like everybody wants to do it, but what's interesting is even the people that didn't know it, if you set the expectation, the reality of it is it's better than there's 7 strangers living in a house, and they opt in. So it creates this like FOMO of like, what are you going to miss out on? Like when you compare it to just a different room, it just changed the valuation of it. And it essentially is pivoting the value concept of the room as a commodity to the experience. And that's always been my argument around it is like, I can charge $20 more than my neighbor because I'm delivering an experience I'm talking about versus just a room. And when I think about it with the lens that you bring to the table, you and your properties are more in line with like my Baltimore hosts that have smaller units, right? The townhouse folks. So your top end revenue piece could be capped. One of the things that we did was we reverse engineered the cost of cleaning supplies and we added it into the weekly rate. If you want to do food or whatever the case Chris does, Chris prints money, so he could do whatever he wants to do. But like in my case, like I reverse engineer cost of everything back into the room rate. But then the impetus is on me as the business operator to communicate the value of why my room is $199, either in my listings and in my my member screening on the inbound, where I clearly state the differential between this house and the one that's down the street at $20 less is the following. And that changes the perspective of how they're viewing the room. And I don't hear complaints about room rates or prices at all. I will get complaints or like, hey, just heads up, like we're out of Clorox because they ran out of something before the monthly the resend for Amazon went to. And I just moved the date up. But like that is a much different conversation than the harder ones, which is like it's just a commodity and I'll go find something, at $10 less.
Got it. So back to printing money, Chris, because these things, with our team, it's, I would say they're not doing terrible, but they're, I mean, we certainly have other units that are not PadSplit that are doing better.
Yeah.
And so it's just, how do you, well, how do you print money? Because that's what I'm trying to do here with these. Because in this area where we have these, it's, we have several that are co-located, and then we have one that's sort of separated from those. We have the opportunity to, add more of these to the portfolio, but, between, sort of the cost to operate and the turnover, furnishing, it's just an additional headache. A lot of these things we don't do as a PadSplit when we could.
What city are you in?
Houston, Texas.
You're in Houston. Okay. I think, I'd be, that's a fairly complex question. I would be happy if you want me to. I'm kind of a numbers and spreadsheet guy. I'd be happy to look at your property analysis sheet and your income and expenses sheet and tell you where the biggest difference is. Or if we're doing things exactly the same, if you want to share that with me. That would be the only way I'd really be able to answer that.
Okay. Yeah,
But
I think
I'd be
there's
happy to do
a
that analysis for you if you like.
now I would need to pull it from our accounting, but it's I think it's fairly straightforward. My biggest issue is, when we don't capture that turnover piece, we don't have long-term tenants, right? So if we had long-term tenants and we could kind of, bump our rates over time, I mean, those things make it a lot better. But if you've got, 2 weeks of sort of front end costs going to PadSplit or ongoing service fees or whatever those things are, and you've got people that are turning over, once a month is not good, right? Now we do have some long-term tenants that have been with us for several years, but very, they're certainly the exception.
So I think that's
So
the
what,
interesting differential is that on our model, two things have to happen, especially in smaller room units like yours. Um, we got to reduce that cat cost. So
Yeah.
the paying 10-day booking fees for every single room, like there's some strategies around how do we reduce that cat cost, either through internal referrals or leveraging the rest of your portfolio to get more internal referrals. That's a no-brainer. And the second is how do we extend tenure? And a lot of the stuff that we're just talking about, that lends itself to extending a lot more of that tenure. If I remember right, you have a property that is going to come back on, which is similar to it's another one of these same units, isn't it? The party?
Yeah, so the way that this was done is we bought a bunch of duplexes. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I bought those duplexes, we rehabbed them and we just operated them as two bedroom, one bath apartments. And so, that worked fine and, is actually, doing well. But over time, we had the pad split at another location. I said, well, let's introduce a model and just see what happens. It's a lower income kind of an area, but it has really interesting demographics and it is adjacent to a gigantic hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought, if we could get the interest, kind of prove the model, just see if we can get, some workers in there, something like that, and see if we can get some higher rents than what we're getting on these other two-bedroom units. And so that has proven to be, I would say, in the 8 to 10% ish range. But the problem is that it's, highly susceptible to the turnover, these fees,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of just market conditions around people that are looking for pad split in that area. So, I would say it's done better than neutral, but we're not printing anything.
No.
so
So
is your, can I,
if I remember right, just hold on one second, Chris.
for you?
5447, that's the third unit, right?
Yes, there are three room
Uh-huh.
units there. So there are 9 rooms in that same sort of complex.
Got it. But if I remember, like we had a conversation, one of them is out on like commercial leasing or extended lease to a different program. So I was just wondering if that one
5447 is coming back on board this month.
got it.
100%. Yeah.
Can we test the crap out of that one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. This is exactly what I was trying to do, is trying to figure out like, hey, let's start fresh from the jump and actually do a community version of it in this house. And then let's see if the price differential is, we'll just back into it. We'll just reverse engineer it and kind of from the jump, this is what the SOPs are going to look like from listing, booking, referral, everything. And see if we can just try to drive some more revenue out of this one.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Where is 5447? Because right now I don't show it as arch.
It's
I mean, I
it's
show it
it's
as archived.
inactive. Yeah, it's archived
So,
and inactive for
so
us.
how do I pull it back up if I go to my dashboard?
Oh,
Uh,
I'll reactivate it. You just let me know what the dates are.
I would say reactivate it now because we have one room in there that's came available on Friday.
Okay.
It's already turned, but I need to update the photos and kind of get it back on.
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah, I can handle that from our side.
Okay, and I'll be there tomorrow. I'll redo all these photos. I think certainly the information you gave around the photos, that helped a lot.
Hmm.
Um, the thing that we haven't seen, is much rent growth. So we've seen, I would say, let's see, this is June. So yeah, that's coming along. We've seen some good, I would say, tenant velocity. So we're getting a lot of eyeballs.
Yep.
I just reduced, the rent. But I think, your initial, or at least early comments around keeping the rent steady and improving the offering
Yeah.
is probably a better approach.
Yeah.
Um, I would ask, kind of what are the other things besides, sort of better pictures and, sort of buying cleaning supplies. I think one of the other things I did was to improve the internet speed because they were always maxing out. And
Hmm.
that was, Chris, one of your questions about the costs. I couldn't figure out why the internet, was always $75 higher, a month than it was supposed to be, and it was because they were always exceeding the cap.
Yeah,
Oh,
I got an email when mine was, they were like, you're at 75%, you're at 80%. So I actually was able to head that off with Xfinity here.
So I get that email, but I'm also reluctant to just say, okay, turn it off. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, me
I
too.
just went to unlimited.
I was also reluctant to do that, but then I talked to my property managers, and they were like, "No, everyone just does it on unlimited," and it made sense to me, so I just switched to unlimited.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I did, is switch to unlimited. But I,
Yeah, I think that's right.
probably spent 500 bucks before
oi,
I
oi.
Yeah.
Yeah, at
Um,
least 500.
so let me ask you this: What are I want to. I'm going through my head like why your profits aren't higher. What is the normal price of a house that you buy? First of all, do you buy turnkey or do you buy a fixer upper?
So I would say, sort of, if we're in that model, it's a fixer-upper. And you know,
And do you do hard
generally,
money?
um, I have not done that. I typically, and so what I would generally do is buy a, portfolio of homes and then figure out what makes sense and then pass split them. So what I have done with these is the ones that we have now are homes that we already had in our portfolio that I thought made sense to convert. And the
Okay.
conversion was the issue. The conversion costs a lot. It's like, I don't know, 40, 50 grand to convert these things. And that obviously didn't help with them not making a bunch of money.
Hmm.
I feel
So
like
did
you're
you?
right. I could probably buy a house for 100 grand and it's, closer to ready to go.
Yeah, but even talking about conversion, we could still analyze that. So do you, for the conversion, is that something you would pay cash for, or is that something you would get a
Yes,
loan for? Yes. Okay.
cash.
Um, okay. So what is like an average mortgage payment monthly for you? Like 1,500 or what is it?
An average mortgage payment. Yeah, I need to get that data because all of these are inside of like portfolio loans. So I would need
Yeah.
to kind of separate that out. What
Yeah.
I
If you're
know is
in,
that well, you know what? Let me put it this way. Let's say a mortgage payment is 1,800 bucks, because that's
okay.
roughly our break even. For a duplex where these duplexes are, they're $900 per unit ish, per month.
Okay, and the reason I ask, I suspected it was something like that, because I looked recently, and I think Houston rates are similar to Jacksonville
They
rates.
are. Yeah.
Okay, but my mortgages are like I think my highest mortgage is 1,500, and my lowest mortgage is like 800. So right away, that's going to. I mean, I think that's going to be the biggest determining factor. I'm happy to look at all your numbers if you like, but it, like I think that's probably going to be your biggest number if you're not profiting on an individual house. If I was paying 1,800, I mean, my numbers would be lower also, like by 800 to 1,000 and some of them.
Either way, John,
Got
let's
it.
let's use 47 as a testing ground for seeing what the dollars would look like and how do we set up the operation internally.
Yeah, let's do it.
And then
one other,
we can horse race it against the 49 or 51 as well.
and can you do you have, what is your bedroom to bathroom ratio? Is it like 2 to 1 like you were talking about before?
So I have 3 bedrooms, 2 baths.
Okay. And next question, what is the average size of the bedroom?
The average size of the bedroom is like a
100 square
150-ish
feet.
square feet, 150, I would say.
Okay, okay.
They're good
Now
size.
here's what I would do. I'm not telling you to do this, but here's what I would do because I'm seeing the issue now. Like you've got higher mortgage. What you should probably do is think about opening it to multiple occupants if you're not already. Are you already doing multiple occupants per bedroom?
I am not.
Okay, you should do that because then you could charge like 20 or 30% more.
300. Yeah. You can
Yeah, and then
increase room rates for the same
and
asset.
all because you've got more bathrooms per bedroom than average, you've got more bedroom space than average, and you need to pose this as a luxury pad split and be like, you've got lots of bathrooms, you've got multiple people, maybe kids if you want to. We could talk about that. I have one property that it was built from the ground up to be able to have kids, and then the other ones were selectively allowing multiple occupants. So that will get your numbers to where you need them to be. We could talk about that more later if you want to, or on one
Okay.
of these meetings if you want to.
Yeah, I was always very nervous about the multiple occupants because
We had problems with single occupants. I know, John. I know.
yeah, a lot of problems. We had a homeless guy that had 3 people sleeping in his room. We had, people that came in with, their boyfriends or girlfriends and, just did whatever. And we had
And you're
some
talking about
people
single. I think you're talking about
when we were
single
single.
occupancy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we did
Okay,
single, I'm
so
saying I'm
so
really afraid going to
we've had
multiple.
fewer problems. I'm sorry to keep interrupting. I think there might be a little bit of lag.
Sorry.
I'll let you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, there's a lag. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we've had fewer problems with our multiple occupant rooms than we have with our single occupant rooms.
All right.
Like in fact, I'd say 80% of the problems come from single occupancy rooms. You should do multiple occupancy or at least test it out.
Test it. Yeah.
All right. We are
Now we're testing. See,
we are testing.
I like it.
Consider it tested. We are
I want
rocking and
I want
rolling.
you to be successful.
Yeah. So we'll use 47 as a testing ground for different things to try. Because I think if I remember right, you have 10 of these, right?
There are 9 kind of located there.
Yeah.
We have
at Party. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm
And
up for
so
it.
this is the other thing that I'm trying to figure out. We have these units that have a lower, so we have when we do our conversion,
Mhm.
it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath. If we don't do a conversion, it is already a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. And so the question that, and this may just be a spreadsheet, does it make sense to try and turn those into nicer units that could be pad split? Because that will give us.
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into that. That's a great topic. We should definitely talk about that. Like
Okay.
really, sorry again. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's a topic I'm excited about. Literally, the best answer is how long does it take for that to become profitable? And it's an exact number of months. So, for example, because you have to put some money up front, and then you'll make that money back over the course of a certain number of months. So, for example, it could be, let's just say it's 1 year. So that would be in other terms, we would call that like 100% cap rate. So that, which is great, of course. But the bottom line is, do you want to save money now? And you could even convert later, though it is harder if you got people in there. But the question is, do you want to save money now and expand more so you got more scalability if you don't do it now? Or do you want to invest the money now and make that money back? And you probably will make it back within a year or so. But of course, you could just plug it into the spreadsheet and find out.
So I would say, thinking about your units, what is an average, sort of rehab for the unit types that you're focused on? We typically look at it as a, kind of cost per unit or number of bedrooms, but how do you?
So yeah, I've got a spreadsheet that I made from the ground up just to answer that question. Um, let's see. So are you asking like how do I analyze how much I should pay per unit?
Yeah, to rehab. So when you're doing your, you buy a house. I
Mhm.
don't, kind
Right.
of know what a house would cost, but you've got a house,
It's
you've
a,
got an amount of rent that you can get, and so what are you looking for in profitability to justify purchasing a house and converting it based on your expenses for conversion?
okay, I understand the question. So there's two basic and unconnected things that we look at. One is the cap rate. So enroll you for a cap rate of about 15%. Now that cap
Got
rate
it.
is based on total cost, which includes not just the renovation, but also the PadSplit conversion. So I put that in there. Not everybody does that, but I am converting it. I'm getting more income for converting it. So I want to analyze that. So the cap rate, including conversion, has to be about 15%. On the other side, and for all my properties, I do hard money, renovate, refinance into DSCR. So on the renovates or on the refinance side, the ARV and the market rent have to make it so that I can get I can get I need to be able to get
Full
at least all
leverage.
my money back for acquisition, and then usually I like to see at least half or more back for the renovation, and then usually the conversion part of the renovation is out of pocket. So it has to. I would say on that the refinance side, it has to at least pay for acquisition and half of the renovation. So if
Got
both
it.
of those two things happen, then it's a winner.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. And then from just one more perspective for that, it also kind of depends on the market. Like if I can't get that in a market, I'll just get the best I can. If there are lots of properties like that, then of course I'll still get the best I can. So it's a little flexible, but I like to see those two things happen.
Got it. So you have a hard money lender that's comfortable with that sort of, and normally I get it. Those guys are just yield focused, but
Are you talking about pad split versus
yeah,
hard money?
PadSplit.
They don't know about the pad split. Hard money lenders don't know, they don't care about the pad split.
Got it.
So
The
we get the money.
DSCR is your PadSplit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't do any of the pad split stuff until after the DSCR refinance is closed.
Got it. So it
So
has
as
to
far
make
as
sense for them with a normal rental model.
that's
Yes.
right. That's right. So it has to. There's two main things they're looking for. It needs to be the ARV needs to be high enough, and the market rent needs to be high enough, and either one can bottleneck the other. So my job is to make sure that the ARV is high enough, and the market rent is whatever the market rent's going to be. So as I'm analyzing whether or not the refinance will make sense, I look at those two things and I determine whether or not they will give me enough money to cover the acquisition and at least half the renovation.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
That was by far the most productive deal call we've ever had. Because that's actually something that's really happened.
I love it.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is literally, we joke all the time. Like Chris and I are on these calls all the time. My wife does not want to talk shop. And I'm like, Chris, will you talk underwriting with me? Like,
Nice.
Underwriting is
nobody
the
wants
most
to.
fun part.
It is. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff. I'm like, this is how you make or break a deal. So learn it,
This is it. This is where the money is made.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
exactly.
All right, let me take a look at a couple things because we're coming up on it. I want to come back around to I owe you roles for all the admin things, and then 47. I'm going to turn back on. I'll coordinate with you on the timing around pictures, and then we'll take a look at some of this automated stuff around move-in surveys and how do we reset 47 as a test case.
Hmm.
I'm looking at your prices. I hate your prices for I do. I hate the 51 pricing. Like it's so low. It's like I know you wanted to get Phil, but like we're gonna move off of that 37, 45, 56 kind of dollars and then move toward into the 70s. And see
Okay.
if we can justify it across that because even $20 a week across those three units.
Yeah, and
Um,
if you're paying $1,800, you've got to do something about that. Listen, I'm telling you right now, I could be in the position that you're in, but because of a few key things I'm doing, I'm profiting instead of not profiting. You need to you need
just
to
consider the double occupancy
let's
thing.
talk
Yeah.
about this. Like if you're paying $1,800 a month in the mortgage, you have to find a way to increase the rate, and the main ways to do that are going to be possibly multiple occupancy, possibly meetings, these things that we're talking about. You have
Yeah.
to increase the value of your units, in my opinion, and then you will be able to profit even with those higher mortgages.
Okay. And so let me actually maybe I can ask you both for the same thing.
Hmm.
One of the things that I think would be helpful is to get some of these SOPs because I do not have that. That is pad split specific for our team.
Hmm.
They are operating off of probably multifamily SOPs, and I think I need to change that. So that's number one. And then number two, we do have another project that is now those are super large bedrooms, like 15 by 15 or larger, slightly larger bedrooms. Do you think that's something that would make sense as fast? I mean, my initial thought was just cut the room in half, but would it make sense as a pad split to have, sort of rooms that big with multiple occupancy and just, kind of put it on that super premium tier? Like these are really big rooms. I mean, easily two king size beds could fit in these rooms.
Yeah,
Wow.
let me comment on that first. So here's a key piece of information that I think will help you. When you look at the lower priced rooms, at least in Jacksonville, I'm sure it's probably the same in Houston. The lower priced rooms seem to have lower tenancy. When you look at the higher priced rooms that have multiple occupancy and things like that, the tenancy is higher. So there is not a there's more people, there's more pressure to try to get into the higher end pad splits than the lower end.
Got it.
Quentin, would you agree with that?
The trade-off we would say from that side is with more weekly rent, let's say 300 a week, right? You're looking at 12, $1,300 at the end of the month. That same person is going to ultimately have more flexibility in terms of where they want to go. So there is a little bit of trade-off in between that. But I think for the most part, I use pricing as a vetting tool for kind of the human situation of the tenant coming inbound. They're not necessarily not living in their car. They just have some more flexibility. They have more value at the 200 price point than the 145. And for me, that person can do a better job paying the bills, and they're not necessarily living paycheck to paycheck. There's a little bit more flexibility where they can focus on, am I getting value from staying here? Utilities included, the rooms are bigger, et cetera. So can we analyze that other property and then just take a look at it from a spreadsheet perspective and then kind of give you options on what that would look like?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's different than the one you have. It's a different address. I
This
thought you
is
were
a
talking about Rosedale.
house.
Yeah.
And it is like a 3,000 square foot house that we had on the market to sell.
Yeah.
It didn't sell because it needed some updates. It needed an updated kitchen and some of the flooring. Although it's hardwood flooring, there's a section of the flooring that needed to be updated. But the rest of it is in pretty good shape. It's like a 1940s vintage, and so that I'm sure didn't compete well, but it's in a super tough neighborhood to get into. Hard to
Hmm.
find comps, nothing selling, and it's close to universities and the largest medical center in the world. So I would think we've got an opportunity to market that. We were, originally going to sell it to a guy that was going to do traveling nurses and some kind of
Hmm.
a Airbnb concept, and he loved it, but ultimately we weren't successful with that. And so now we've got it for, kind of our basis, and we could add another, we could spend some money on it and see if it works.
Okay. Do you have the address? Because that way I can start
Yeah.
underwriting the backside of it.
Let me see here. I think it's, well, you know what? I can email it to
Yeah,
you
just
because
email
I
it to
need to
me.
pull it up. Yeah.
And then I'll give you the kind of the market comps against it, and then we can take a look at what it is today, what you kind of wanted to get to at the end,
Okay.
and then a template for how we're going to run it.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right, this is
All
good.
right, gents. Well,
I
thank y'all so
appreciate it.
much. This was really good.
Absolutely.
This is my first underwriting call. I think it wasn't terrible. I joined on the best one.
No, this is a good one. This is good. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Take care.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.